What's up, guys? So recently Bungie dropped a meaty, thick, with 2 C's this week at Bungie, or a TWAB. So the TWAB this week was focused specifically on the 2.1.4 update coming at the end of January, and it got really into the changes of what will be happening to a majority of the supers. So to break it down quickly for you before we get into the details, is damage was increased for most supers and only slightly reduced for Blade Barrage and Nova Warp, which I think most people would find that fair. So I'm gonna go through the changes for each class and then share my overall thoughts on each class. So grab some food, sit tight, now let's get into it. So for supers that they had their damage increased, you have Golden Gun, 3-shot and 6-shooter, Shadow Shot, Mobius Quiver specifically, Arc Staff, Burning Maul, Hammer of Soul, Fist of Havoc, Sentinel Shield, Nova Bomb, and Daybreak. And as I mentioned above, the decreases were Blade Barrage and Nova Warp. So starting with you hunters out there, for Gunslinger changes. Golden Gun, 6 shooters kills, return a bullet. Okay. Practice makes perfect, super regen increased. Blade Barrage, the damage is now heavily weighted on the delayed explosion instead of the knife impact. Now deals self damage if the knives explode too close, and fixed a bug where the knives would track allies. Some notes that Bungie added with this is the Golden Gun change brings increased uptime with your super. For Way of the Outlaw, this means a skill-based mechanic to extend it. For Way of the Sharpshooter, it's the ability to earn your super more quickly. All right, so thoughts on this. Basically, I think this is a very, very positive change to the lethality of Golden Gun. With either Pertry, you're in a scenario where you're extending the duration of your super or getting it back even quicker. And I like that change because it's a skill-based change. So if you're not getting kills, the effectiveness of these changes could be limited. Obviously, we won't truly know until this update is live how it will be actually implemented. But as far as Blade Barrage goes, I find this to be a small nerf. I like that being too close to the knives does some self damage, so you aren't rewarded for panicking and popping Blade Barrage into a wall, but instead have to be more selective and very aware of your positioning when using Blade Barrage. So again, creating somewhat of a skill gap when using Blade Barrage. Moving on to Night Stalker. These changes are to Mobius Quiver, which is the bottom tree for Night Stalker. So changes being entire damage bonus is applied on the first hit instead of stacking and multiplying, increased tether radius and lifetime, and made it easier to fire successive tethers. Not bad, not bad. Spectral Blades. Now this is good here. Damage resistant and stealth decreased. I like. Duration of super while invisible slightly decreased. So starting with Mobius Quiver, I think any changes to tether are good, just because from a PvP perspective, it's just so bad. It's just so bad. And I think increases to the radius, duration, and ease at which multiple shots are fired all sounds great. But the real thing to discuss for me here is the change to Spectral Blades. So I love both of these changes. Ever since the hit registration of this subclass got fixed, it has been so rampant in the Crucible, which is fine. That's fine. You know, enjoy your Spectral Blades. But damn, they are near impossible to kill when invisible. And I like that if you keep abusing the heavy attack to go invisible, which almost everyone does, it reduces the super duration. So again, this forces you to pick and choose your spots when using that heavy attack to go invisible, and use the ability in a more skillful way. You gotta pick your spots with this one. Bungie also mentioned at the end of the section that this is just the first pass for Shadow Shot, and they focus on Mobius Quiver for this specific pass. But if you guys haven't noticed already, there's already this trend of, yeah, the super is getting buffed or nerfed a little bit here and there, but all the buffs or nerfs so far are forcing you to be more skillful. Moving on to Ark Strider, the changes for Ark Strider are as follows. So super damage is now more heavily weighted towards the heavy palm strike attack. No attack damage was reduced, but much of the added damage for the super went into the heavy attack, and the lethal current bonus damage increased. So I don't play a lot of Ark Strider, but I think again, increasing the damage for this class I think is definitely gonna be good. I feel like it's somewhat underutilized. So that wraps up our hunters. Now we are moving on to titans, and we are starting with Sunbreaker. So the changes here: sunspots double the damage of the burn on enemies. Some warrior buff link increased from 3 seconds to 5 seconds, and now increases all outgoing damage. Burning maul slam radius increased. Slamfire tornado improved homing. So to be honest guys, I'm not super familiar with this subclass, but I do know that something with Burning Maul had to be changed. It was just a very underwhelming super, and whenever I was playing Crucible and someone else, like my enemy, popped Burning Maul, I wasn't really concerned by it. I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna run away. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not really worried about this. But these changes seem like they could fix that with the increased slam radius, so it'll be harder for people to get a little bit away from you when you are chasing with your super. And I'm also interested to see how strong the tornado homing is. Maybe it'll be very Dawnblade-esque with this tracking. Who knows? We'll see. But definitely exciting changes. Moving on to Sentinel. The changes are pretty straightforward here. Super damage is more heavily weighted on the heavy shield charge attack. No attack damage was reduced, but much of the added damage for the super went into the heavy attack. So damage across the board is basically the same, but they just increased the damage of the super, or the heavy attack, it sounds like. Moving on to Striker. Now it's gonna get a little wild here. It's getting a little wild now. Let's go next level. Terminal velocity. There are now 3 tiers of hang time. So the amount of hang time for each tier has been reworked. Each tier of hang time now causes 4 damaging shocks instead of 3. The damage for the hang time bonus has been increased significantly. So for terminal velocity, the more elevation you get before slamming, the more damage you will do. And there is now tiers, so the higher you get, the higher you go in those tiers of damage. Moving on to Trample. The light shoulder attack super cost has been reduced by 85%. Trample can now be triggered every 0.5 seconds, up from every 1 second. Okay, so basically this super can last a long time. They reduced the super cost use by 85% and increased how often you can trigger Trample, which is a perk that extends the duration of Fist of Havoc. So basically, if this super is used correctly, it can last a long time, and even Bungie points out in the article, in PvE it can potentially last minutes. And since the light attack cost has been significantly reduced, it can kind of be used more to aid in the movement, which is huge. Movement, anything that support movement is always going to be huge. And last but certainly not least, we have my Warlocks, my favorite. So starting with Dawnblade, super duration is increased. Yeah, okay, because that's what that super needed. Seriously though, I can see this super, guys, being a 7th column machine. Expect people to be making some nasty plays with that subclass, guys. If they're increasing the super duration, we got to see how long that is. It may not be that much, but just a statement super duration is increased. I think it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be crazy. Moving on to Voidwalker, and this is where you're gonna find Nova Warp, which a lot of people are interested in. Starting with Cataclysm, so increased detonation radius, cluster damage increased, improved cluster bomb homing to make it more consistent against single targets. Cluster bombs no longer detonate one another. Nice. I think those are all very, very positive. Vortex linger damage increased significantly. Now Nova Warp, slower movement while charging. Charging costs more energy and overall duration is reduced. Damage resistance reduced very slightly. PvP damage reduction, and charge detonation will no longer be able to one-shot another player in their super, provided it has damage resistance. So I'm a big fan of all the changes here, simply because they are making the other subclass trees more viable. I'm super interested in trying out Cataclysm and seeing how much the homing and blast radius have been improved. As far as the nerfs to Nova Warp, I like that they went with a bunch of like multiple small nerfs versus one nerf into the ground, making it useless. I think without question Nova Warp is very overpowered in its current state, but these changes look to bring it down just a hair, in my opinion. I don't see anything here that I'm like, oh my god, it's dead. Subclass is done, right? The one thing I would have liked to see out of all these changes though was a buff to Vortex. the blast radius to make it more reminiscent of D1 Nova Bomb. I just really miss OG Nova Bomb, and I feel like it had an amazing blast radius. One other thing I'd like to add is with Nova Warp, I love that they made it to where you can't one-shot another player in their super. Just perusing through the Reddit forums, that's a big point of contention with a large portion of the community is, hey, I'm in my super, this guy pops Nova Warp and he kills me and my buddy who are both in their super, so one super kills two supers. What's up with that? So I think that's a pretty positive change. Lastly, for Stormcaller, no big changes, just increase the number of targets for Chain Lightning by 1. I feel overall this subclass is in a good spot, so you know, I'm good with any kind of little ad they had here. I wasn't really expecting much changes for this subclass, honestly. Woo! So that was a lot of content to go over. But to sum things up, I like the direction they've taken, where a lot of the buffs or nerfs increase how intentional you have to be with your supers and will really force you to use them skillfully to be as effective as possible. Because I'll be honest right now, you guys, supers right now feel a bit brainless. You can be pretty sloppy with popping it and not really have to worry about being punished for it. So this is, I think, a positive direction. I love that they're focusing more on buffing and not nerfing, and increasing the skill gap with your super. So yeah, maybe I'll pop Golden Gun or Nova Warp or Dawn Blade, but now how effective I am with that super and how long that super lasts is dictated specifically by how skillful I am with it. So let me know what you guys think of these super changes in the comments below. Let me know if you think some subclasses need a little bit more, some need a little bit less. I want to hear it all in the comments below, guys. With that, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.